Today we're going to look at the first computer game that I programmed, and that was in old days in 1997 when we had mostly DOS still at that time, and we will look at what tools to use and how to program it, and then later we're going to look at how to upgrade or rewrite that program into the modern 64-bit Windows type of environment, and it will also support Linux and Macintosh. And then we're going to show what tools can be used to use a modern gaming platform to write that same game. And of course, we will also look in detail how to use AI to help a lot with all of this complexity. The programming system that I used then was called DJGPP. That's a pretty crazy name. And so the DJ is the first name of the guy that invented that, DJ DeLory. He was kind of a pioneer in the 32-bit processing in 1989. He actually wrote a fairly sophisticated C compiler and a whole bunch of things. And so he was kind of a leading people with a 86 computer in the old days. So that system allows to program standard C programming, and there's also a bunch of extensions, and one of them is the so-called Allegro gaming library. So that's basically a library that is for video game development. Initially, that thing Allegro stands for Atari low-level game routines. So they kind of figured, well, what type of routines do the Atari games have? And so this guy reinvented those things, Allegro. And so in the old days, I was using Allegro version 2. To run that game today, you need DOSBox X. It's kind of similar to the old DOSBox, but it's more compatible with sound and in Windows and so on. So you start up the DOSBox software, and then here I'm going to show you how that will look when it runs. Here are the files that make up the game. So here's the compiled program, and then I can just run that. Up, there it comes up. And let's see. So here's a brief instruction of how it works, but I'll show it to you instead of just making you read all of that stuff. So we have some background music, and then the guy can take blocks from here, put them onto this springboard, press the button, and transport them onto this other platform where he's supposed to build a nice large construction. So if he puts this up here, that gets aligned there. And now let's see, if he puts them up like this here, and then he takes another one like so, like so, that is not stable, because you see that will kind of collapse. So the trick is to build things that are, let me turn up the music here, too much music there. Pop, okay. So the trick is basically to build something that is symmetric. Oops, let's see, let's grab this one here. I'm going to put that right in the middle. Then we put this thing also squarely in the middle, here, that way, and take another one here. And now we can climb up on the thing because this is now stable. Then it comes up with the next game level. And so it's really kind of fun. It gets more and more difficult with more and more difficult parts to build, to construct. This here is the program code and my first program in C, construction. As you can see, there was a lot of stuff to do to get this all programmed. I just made myself a to-do list. And then here's where the actual program starts. So far, so good. It includes the Allegro stuff. And then there is a whole bunch of so-called sprites, different pictures. And if you're interested in seeing the source code, I can make it available in the links in the description. Let me know if there's interest in that, and we make that available. And so here's the different parts that are part of this whole game. And then I guess somewhere there are the different choices. Let's say, what keys can they press? What happens? This here is an instruction how to play the game. Here is Well, let's see, where does it show what one does based on the more keys, motion keys? Good, let's see, coming up here somewhere. It's a long list. Unfortunately, this program turned out to have 1,300 lines of code. I mean, wow, that's a hell of a lot of code in my thinking, because in my database programming, typically, it's not, things don't take that much effort. So here we can say if he moves left, we do that. If he moves right, we do that. If we drop the piece, and if we shoot it and so on, that's all that we'll do. Let's say the guy wants to exit the level with the escape key. That would all have to be done. Good. Or here, pressing F1 brings up the F1 key. So this is basically the whole program. And let's scroll to the bottom just for fun. And it is 1,300 lines of code, right? Oy, 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 oy. Okay, good. So now the trick with this is this runs only in the DOS mode. So this will not run without the DOS box. And the next challenge will be, how can we convert that into a modern Windows-based system? So there I asked ChatGPT, what would be the right programming system to even transport that into the modern world? And so DJGPP doesn't exist in a 64-bit world. It only exists kind of for DOS, really, and for 32-bit. So I asked ChatGPT, and it came up with this suggestion here. Ming, that almost looks like it's from China, the Ming Dynasty, but no, it stands for Minimal GNU System for Windows and 64-bit platform. So that is basically a fairly modern 64-bit compiler. And so that is the programming language that we're using. It's like small command prompt window here where one can type the commands to compile stuff. And then the other thing that we needed is, of course, the software library. And that goes well with Allegro again. They've come up with a newer version now that is Allegro 5. And the Allegro 5 stuff is nicely connected up with the modern versions of Windows. And it also supports Linux. And yeah, it supports a whole bunch of systems. Linux, Macintosh, iPhone, Android, and even the Raspberry Pi. And what else? I think that's about it. But it's good enough. So basically, this language, this programming, the gaming language, exists for Windows as well. Now that's the new one. But the problem is that a whole bunch of things that they used in very simple terms in the old DOS days have now been advanced in Windows. So one needs to do a fair bit of work to get that working. Not all commands are the same. Actually, there are many commands that are slightly different because it's a more modern type of style of programming. The various files that are needed for game development, let's say the pictures and the sound, they're called assets. And so the first thing I needed to do was to convert these old style assets. Oops, let's go back one here. We have them here. These were so-called PCX files, a popular graphics format in the old days. That needed to be converted to the much more modern PNG file. So now we have a folder here that contains the different assets. So here you can see the main actor, Helmut Head. And so he actually consists of 8 different pictures in walking. So we see here, then he steps out. Here's like a preview of how it goes. So if I click on this one, he's stepping forward a little bit, there, there, and there. And so in 8 different pictures, one can kind of simulate how the motion is of that guy. Then when he picks up something, he looks like this. And then again, he can walk with the different blocks, just like so. And the software needs to then pull the right picture at each position when he walks. Here is how he looks like when he's climbing up. So he's climbing up the construction that he made. By the way, all of these were made by my brother Alex, that you know from the channel already. He's quite an artistic talent, and I think he did a really good job in making these figures here. The good thing is that in ChatGPT, it knows all of the programming languages, DJGPP, and MSys, the 64-bit compiler, and it even knows the old Allegro, which is what I used. and the new one. And so we can see what we had here in the old Allegro was these types of things: procedural, linear flow control. And so in Allegro 5, the new one, it's more like a so-called event-driven architecture. That's more like object-oriented. And there's a whole bunch of new features. And the good thing is ChatGPT has a good clue for what the differences are. So then basically we have this whole thing, 1,300 lines of code. And unfortunately, we cannot tell ChatGPT, great, transpose the entire thing over to who knows how many 1,500 lines of 64-bit C with Lego 5, but one needs to go in small baby steps. So here are the baby steps that ChatGPT suggests for the new Lego 5 universe. So we have to open and create a window, then we have to draw that and then exit that cleanly. And that is what the commands are for that. And then I think as actually a bit more further, it comes up with, and so basically this program just creates a window that is a real Windows window. So, and then it creates like one small drawing element, let's say this thing here, where you can just move the block left and right with one key click. So that's like a very, very simple starting point. And the code for that looks just like this. So this here is the code that is that simple program. Basically, we include the Allegro 5 stuff. So far, so good. And then we are saying the screen will be so-and-so wide. Good. And then the next thing is we have to specify what happens upon the keys here. So if somebody presses the left key, then the hero will move to the left. Otherwise, he will move to the right. And if somebody presses the escape key, then they can get out of that screen altogether. Here's the sequence of the steps that ChatGPT suggests that we do. And it says a couple of other complicated things. Oh, it admits 1,300 lines sounds large, but we can do it. There will be about 60% of the lines that will be identical to what we had before. So I typically just ask like small step questions like this here. Can you now start with putting the hero on the screen and then put in code so that it can start moving to the left and to the right? Let's see what we get now. And here's what it says. It says, yes, now we begin with the construction properly. And we're going to write a program that will be called Hero Walk C. Now, the good thing is that it really writes most of the code. So I'm going to copy this code here into my C compiler. And it was supposed to be asked, let's see. So the thing was going to be called Hero Walk C. Good, let's try that. Nano. Hero Walk, let's see, pop, and then we have to paste that in here using the right click on the keyboard. Good, so that is the entire program. Well, now the moment of truth. Let's save this out. In the Nano editor, one now has to use the Ctrl-O button to write it to the disk, pop, Ctrl-X, and then it gives compile instructions on how to do that. So let's see. That would be this fantastic code here. We need to copy that right into our prompt here. Right click and paste. And no, that was wrong. So we only want to copy the actual command prompt in here. GCC compile this, and then it has these different choices. Now let's see if it gets that done. And so far, no smoke coming out of the computer. That's a good sign. Is it going to compile this? All right, so here it says an error. Good. Let's check that out. So one of my first ways to do it is just take the entire command and copy that into ChatGPT and press enter. And typically, if you just copy the entire prompt into ChatGPT, it figures out, okay, great, that's an error, needs to be fixed. And here in this case, it found a solution for that. So we're saying that this line is not needed. Remove this line completely. Okay, we can do that for a small fee of $0 million. Let's try that out here. Oops, that's the wrong place. Good, so this line can be deleted. And the keyboard command is Control K in Nano. Then we have to use Control O to save it to a disk.